Hello, hello. The name is Regis Kilbin, and the game is Heroes of the Storm. And today we're going to be talking about the ultimate Sylvanas build. This is my top build for Sylvanas. This is kind of my default or general go-to build when nothing else stands out. These are the talents that I want to have and help me play Sylvanas to the very best. The goal with this build is essentially to make Sylvanas a few different things. She's a solid split pusher with some reasonable escape. She's great for poke damage in team fights, and she's even pretty decent at a little bit of single target damage too. So she's kind of a pseudo assassin, pseudo specialist who's great at clearing waves and pushing in the early game, but can also contribute in team fights in the late game while remaining incredibly safe. So to go through the talents real quickly for those of you who are a little bit impatient and just want to see the build, we're going to start with the Wind, and then Envenom, Unstable Poison, Wailing Arrow, Evasive Fire, Cold Embrace, and finally Bolt of the Storm. But I'd like to go into those in a little bit more detail so we can see how they each contribute to this build and make this really the ultimate build for Sylvanas. So at level 1, we're going to start with the Wind. This increases Withering Fire's range by 25%, and Withering Fire is your Q ability, which I cannot cast until I get next to something. So the 25% there essentially just allows you to remain a little bit safer when you're engaging opponents. You can poke them from a little farther away. Same with minions and towers. It allows your positioning to hit 2 towers, be a little, you know, more flexible or adjustable. And it's synergizes pretty well with some of our later talents too, which are going to give us movement speed. So if opponents are chasing you, you can get off a few extra Qs when they're far away and give you a little bit more buffer room as you try to make an escape by running or with your E teleport. So it does a few different things really well, both offensively and even defensively. At level 4, we're going to go with Envenom. This is a active ability with a 60-second cooldown that just does some damage over time, specifically over 10 seconds. Now, Envenom did get nerfed relatively recently. It used to be 5 seconds for the same damage, so it's a much slower burn than it used to be. But that's actually beneficial against stealth opponents, which Sylvanas can sometimes struggle with a little because she has such a small health pool. So if you can pop Envenom on them, they will remain unstealthed throughout the duration. It also just gives you an edge in one-on-one duel situations because it can be a little bit hard to pump out damage really quickly against people, and that can sometimes be enough to kill someone in a fair fight. So it's also just good for, chipping in damage in team fights, or if you're in quick match and the other team doesn't have a healer, it can really, really impact them. So it's good all around. And frankly, the other talents of this tier are just a little bit weak. So Envenom is not perfect, but it still gets the edge. At level 7, we're going to go with Unstable Poison. Minions and mercenaries that die under the effects of Black Arrow, which is your W ability, they will explode, dealing 225 damage to nearby enemies. So this essentially is just the effect that allows you to decimate minion waves all at once very easily. You see the whole thing exploded. So at level 7, it gives you a huge pushing advantage in the early game, but it also is great in the late game when you just need to mow through a lane and get to a keeper of fort. So it's good at split pushing, and really, really impactful at level 7 when you first get it too. Can give your team a huge boost in that early to mid game phase for map control and map presence. Level 10, our heroic ability, we're going to stick with Wailing Arrow. This is a 90-second cooldown skill shot that can be detonated at any time if you aren't aware, even very, very close to your body. That does decent damage, but more importantly, silences anyone in that explosion radius for 2.5 seconds, which is really long in a team fight. It's great for setting up team fights. It does a little bit of damage as well. If you land a good Wailing Arrow or combo with something like an ETC or even a Void Prison, the enemy team's in trouble and can give you a huge edge coming into a team fight. Level 13, we're going to go with Evasive Fire. Withering Fire grants you a movement speed buff. Specifically, you gain 10% movement speed for 2 seconds whenever an enemy is hit with Withering Fire, and it stacks up to 30%. So in other words, if you hit 3 in a row, you can gain a 30% move speed, which, if you're not aware, is like a mount almost. A mounts move at 40%, so It's almost like a mounted move speed. You can really truck essentially if you get 3 of these off. You'll see how fast they're moving. So it's great when you're escaping because you can hit your Q while running, so you can keep somebody behind you and they'll chase you, but they'll never catch you essentially. And it just gives you that flexibility, and you can get a little bit greedier in team fights. You can jump in to throw a W or an Envenom and still get out safely. It's also good if you're split pushing to just give you a little bit more escape room. See, like we can just really truck. It's hard for opponents to catch you. So the other talents here aren't great. Like, yeah, this technically allows you to a little extra DPS. This has a reasonably meaningful slow, and spell shields can be good against spell heavy teams, mage heavy teams, but evasive fire kind of does all the same things these do, but allows you to control it and is meaningful in more ways. At level 16, we're going to go with Cold Embrace. This enables your W to make opponents vulnerable, which is a 25% debuff. Now, the problem, of course, is that it reduces the range of your W by 25%. So you can see you had to get pretty close there to throw that in at all. That's why things like our level 13 talent Evasive Fire are helpful, because we can get in, throw on our W, drop a couple of Qs, and then get right back out, or safely position ourselves. Or evade skill shots too. I forgot to mention that for Evasive Fire, but it's great for moving out of things like Blizzard or even boss abilities that are giving you trouble. And also that 25% debuff is huge in a team fight, because that spreads, right? Your W spreads to all opponents, so you'll notice the vulnerables ticking off there. That doesn't just happen against minions, that happens against enemies. So they're overclumped. You can apply a 5-man 25% debuff, essentially, which is insane. If your team follows up with good damage, you will win team fights based on that ability alone. And then finally, at level 20, you may think we already have a ton of defensive escapes because we have our E teleport. We also have the movement speed from our Q and the range from our Q. So you think, man, Sylvanas can get away from anything at this point. Well, not quite. We're actually going to go for one more, and that is Bolt of the Storm, which essentially gives you another teleport that's instant instead of delayed. For the same reasons that these other evasive abilities were good, Bolt of the Storm just gives you that much more range and flexibility when engaging in team fights. You can dive harder and dive deeper, whether it's split pushing or whether it's jumping in to drop a W or an Envenom. You have multiple ways to get out, and given your small health pool, having yet another escape can be very beneficial. Plus, you shouldn't often do it, but Bolt of the Storm can be used offensively. For instance, well, it's gonna be hard to set this up. I was gonna say you could just teleport forward and kill a fleeing opponent, which can be great, because if you've got 5 stacks and they're just out of range, you can teleport forward and just dump all of your W's. I mean, dump all your Q abilities right on them. So hit them with 5 straight Withering Fires, which is a nice little burst along with a couple auto attacks and a W. So it has offensive utility as well as, of course, the defensive utility. So that is the ultimate Sylvanas build. This is going to make you really good at wave clears, strong at safely split pushing, and formidable in team fights as well. This is kind of the do everything Sylvanas build. It's a jack of all trades and a master of most of them, right? So she can contribute a ton of damage and really help you control the map in powerful and meaningful ways. One last time, let's go through these talents. With the Wind, Envenom, Unstable Poison, Wailing Arrow, Evasive Fire, Cold Embrace, and Bolt of the Storm. If you select these talents, you are going to be a master Sylvanas like this beautiful skin in no time. I wish you luck with the ultimate Sylvanas build. I hope you have fun playing it on the ladder. And until next time, game on.